My sister believes I'm her protector, but the truth is I'm the one who betrayed her first. Every time she hugs me, I feel the weight of the lie pressing harder. I cut ties with my mother after she punched me square in the face at a restaurant. Years later, she tried to hijack my wedding and now, she's demanding to see my newborn daughter. I'm 26 now, and I barely speak to my mother, who's 48. Our relationship unraveled a long time ago, back when I was just a kid. Middle school was when everything shifted. After a car accident, my mom got hooked on painkillers. At first, we all gave her grace. She was in real pain, and the medication seemed to help. But soon, the pills weren't enough. She started taking more than prescribed, then anything she could get her hands on. The breaking point came in 7th grade. Her addiction spiraled so far out of control that she overdosed at work. She was a receptionist at a dental office, and they found her unconscious in the bathroom during her lunch break. She lost her job that same day. And after that? Her rage turned on me. Every single morning, on the way to school, she'd tear me apart. My clothes looked awful. My hair was a disaster. I was too thin. I walked like a boy. I talked too much. Or not enough. Nothing was ever good enough for her. Meanwhile, my stepdad Jack was gone before the sun came up and didn't return until late at night. By the time he walked through the door, she'd slip into this picture-perfect act, and no one else saw the monster I lived with. But then came the night that shattered everything. I was 14. We were out at dinner with Jack, my 2 little sisters, my grandparents, my Aunt Leslie, and my cousin Becky. My mom started going off about how irresponsible Becky's friend's dad was because invitations for some party hadn't gone out. I gently corrected her, it wasn't the dad, it was the kid who forgot to mail them. That's all it took. She swung on me. Twice. With a closed fist. The whole restaurant froze. My stepdad grabbed her arm before she could hit me again. My aunt rushed me to the bathroom, trying to stop the blood from pouring out of my nose. Later that week, Becky actually called Child Protective Services. But when the social worker showed up, she seemed more interested in sipping coffee with my mother than checking on me. Nothing changed. When I got my first period at 15, my mother suddenly declared, "You're a woman now." She yanked me out of soccer and choir, said they were too masculine, not ladylike. With no sports and no activities, I gained about 60 pounds in a year. And suddenly, the insults shifted. Now I wasn't just weird or awkward. Now I was disgusting. Repulsive. Unlovable. I'd sit at my desk, trying to study, and she'd lean against the doorframe, chanting over and over, "No one will ever love you." Until one day, I stopped hearing her. I tuned her out completely, like flipping a switch in my brain. To this day, if I'm focused on something, I won't hear a word until someone physically taps me. But my mother wasn't stupid. When she realized I'd stopped listening, she changed tactics. She'd wait until I left my room for food or the bathroom, then trail me down the hallway whispering the most venomous things. "You should just end your life. You're worthless." Imagine being 17 and hearing that from your own mother every single day. After graduation, I reconnected with my high school friend Ryan. He and I were both desperate to get out of our parents' houses. I had a job at the hospital in patient registration and was saving every cent. And then came the moment that pushed me over the edge. I walked into my room one afternoon to find my mother rifling through my dresser. She was planting pills in my drawer, muttering curses under her breath. If those pills had been found in my possession, I would have lost my job. My entire future in healthcare, gone. At that exact moment, the doorbell rang. Ryan had arrived, and he overheard her screaming at me. That was it. We walked out and started looking at apartments that same afternoon. By evening, we had a lease signed. When we came back with the paperwork, my mother's face drained of color. She never thought I'd actually go through with it. The next morning, I packed my clothes, grabbed a few personal things, and left for good. That apartment became my sanctuary. It had a gym and tennis courts, and I started moving my body again. 65 pounds came off. I made friends. I went on dates. For the first time in my life, I felt free. I didn't tell my mother where I lived, and for over a year, I had peace. Then I met Daniel. From our very first conversation, it just clicked. Within a month, I'd met his parents, warm, kind people who made me feel like I belonged. But of course, peace never lasts long. 3 months into dating, my grandmother called. She said my mother wanted to meet Daniel. That she'd changed. That she missed me. Against my better judgment, I agreed to at least try. The first phone call? Exactly what I expected. She opened by guilting me about leaving behind our childhood dog. I reminded her that my lease didn't allow pets, she knew that. A week later, she and Jack came by. They even brought the dog, which made me smile for a moment. But 10 minutes into the visit, she disappeared. 15 minutes later, I found her in my bedroom, going through my drawers again. I lost it. Told her to leave. Jack didn't argue this time, he practically dragged her out. I told them both she was never welcome back. Not long after, Daniel proposed. I was thrilled, couldn't wait to share the news. But when I called my parents, instead of congratulations, my mother immediately demanded to know who was in my wedding party. I told her Becky would be my maid of honor, and her son the ring bearer. That's when she snapped. She threatened Becky's life. I'm not exaggerating, she said she would end her. The backstory here matters. Becky had struggled with addiction too, but unlike my mom, she fought her way through rehab and got clean. She rebuilt her life. My mom never forgave her for it. Or maybe she just hated that Becky refused to let her see her son unsupervised. Either way, it was terrifying. After that call, Daniel and I realized we couldn't risk a big wedding. We chose a private ceremony. Just us, a close friend who got ordained online, and Daniel's parents as witnesses. It was beautiful. Quiet. Ours. When we eventually told our families, my mother exploded again, blaming Becky for ruining everything. But I didn't care. The day was already behind us, safe from her reach. Later, Daniel's mom offered to throw us a small reception. Something casual, something to celebrate. It felt like a good compromise. I invited Becky, told her to stop by early before my mother could cause trouble. When I called my mom to see if she wanted to help plan, she made her condition clear: Becky couldn't come. I refused. I told her flat out, if you can't handle Becky being there, then you won't be there either. She retaliated by forbidding my stepdad and sisters from coming. I let the reception go on without them. And honestly, it was still a wonderful night. Recently, Daniel and I decided to try for a baby. We miscarried last year, which made us cautious, but now, we're ready again. One thing is certain, though, I will never allow my mother near my child. Because the thought of her whispering the same poison into my baby's ears that she once whispered into mine? That keeps me up at night. The hardest part is knowing my stepdad and sisters may miss out because of her. I love them deeply, but I can't risk her slipping through the cracks. I'm not even telling anyone which hospital I'll deliver at. Visitors will wait until we're home. I know my mother will find out eventually. Maybe through insurance records. Maybe by snooping. But if she shows up at our home, I'm ready. I love where we live, but I will sell this house and disappear before I ever let her poison seep into my family. She refuses help. The one time I suggested therapy, she screamed until I hung up. My hospitals already know not to share a single scrap of information with her, because yes, she has called my doctors before, fishing for details. And what hurts the most? She acts like every milestone in my life belongs to her. As if my wedding, my marriage, my pregnancy, they're hers to control. I've tried no contact. Every time, someone in the family pressures me to reconnect. They claim she's changed. She hasn't. I've decided, I'm done. I told my stepdad this week, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't fight me. He promised he'd find ways to see me without her. I didn't even bring up the baby. I just focused on her behavior. And I warned him, any family member who tries to guilt me into letting her back in, they'll be cut off too. My stepdad once tried to protect me, but she threatened to divorce him and take me away forever. My biological dad was long gone, so that threat was real. He did what little he could until I turned 18, and then he truly stood by me. Now, as I prepare to start my own family, I need to figure out how to keep him and my sisters in my life, while keeping her out completely. Because I know one thing for sure, if she gets anywhere near my baby, history will repeat itself. And I refuse to let that happen. First, I want to thank everyone who reached out after my original story. Your comments and advice gave me the push I needed to trust myself and stay firm in my decision to cut my mother out of my life. Last week, I sat down for lunch with my stepdad. Honestly, I went into it nervous, bracing for some kind of lecture or guilt trip. But instead, it went better than I ever imagined. He looked me straight in the eye and told me he fully supports my decision. He even admitted that he confronted my mother about her behavior toward me. And, just as I expected, she brushed it all off, said I was exaggerating, that I was too sensitive. The same tired excuses she's always used. But then he surprised me. When I brought up the reception, he said he plans to come. Even though my mother forbade it, he told me flat out that he's done letting her control who he can see. The reception had to be pushed back because of a venue conflict, but it's rescheduled for next month. And this time? He swore he'll be there, and so will my sisters. We also talked about the insurance issue, the one that had been eating away at me. He reassured me, my mother can't touch it. She can't change a single thing without him knowing. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I didn't bring up the pregnancy just yet. I told him I wasn't ready to share certain things, and he respected that. But then I asked him something that's been burning inside me for years. Why do you stay with her? His answer was simple. Almost heartbreakingly simple. She doesn't have anywhere else to go. I told him, point blank, that wasn't his burden to carry. And if he ever decided to walk away, I'd support him fully. That's when he confessed something I never knew. He's been wanting to divorce her since my youngest sister turned 18 last year. All these years, he stayed because of us. Because he thought if he left, we'd lose what little stability we had. Hearing that cracked something open in me. He told me more, things I didn't know about the early days of her addiction. How he would argue with her behind closed doors after she hurt me. How he threatened therapy, even intervention, if she didn't stop. And that's when she dropped the bombshell on him, the threat of divorce. She told him she'd take me away, make sure he never saw me again. Considering my biological dad had walked out when I was a toddler, that was a threat he couldn't ignore. Then he explained the money situation. Back in middle school, when we lost our house and had to move into a mobile home. That wasn't bad luck. That was her. She'd been blowing through mortgage payments even though he gave her the money every month. After that, he cut her access to their accounts, only giving her cash for basics. After that lunch, both of my sisters called me. Emma and Lily. They said something that nearly brought me to tears, they'd choose me over mom any day. Emma admitted life at home has only gotten worse since I moved out. And Lily? She's already out on her own. Emma's next. She asked if I'd help her find an apartment. We spent Saturday touring places near me, and she found this little one-bedroom that she actually liked and could afford. She's already sending in her application. Knowing she'll soon have a safe place away from my mother, that feels like a win I never thought we'd get. And then, something I've barely let myself hope for, we had our first prenatal appointment. The doctor confirmed I'm 8 weeks along. We saw the heartbeat on the ultrasound. After losing a pregnancy before, that tiny flicker felt like a miracle. The doctor said everything looks healthy, and for the first time in a long time, I felt real joy. Daniel and I have already made a plan. We won't announce the birth until we're home from the hospital. That way, we control who walks through our door. My stepdad and sisters will be the first to meet the baby, in the safety of our own home. In the meantime, we've taken precautions. Cameras on the front and back doors. Neighbors who know the situation and promise to alert us if my mother shows up. For the first time, I feel like I have a protective circle around me instead of walking this road alone. But of course, family pressure never really stops. Yesterday my grandmother texted me, asking why I haven't called my mom. I told her the truth, I need space for my mental health. She shot back that family should stick together, that I should forgive my mother because she's the only one you'll ever have. I didn't respond. But later, my Aunt Leslie called me. And to my surprise, she defended me. She told me she regrets not doing more when I was younger. She was there at the restaurant that night, she saw it all, and she finally admitted she should have spoken up sooner. Now, she's standing with me. That support, it means more than I can even say. Still, the nerves are there. I'm not showing yet, but I will be soon. And when I do, I know it's only a matter of time before word gets back to my mother. For now, I'm focusing on what matters, my health, my baby, helping Emma and Lily carve out their independence, and keeping the people who love me close. The reception is coming up in just a few weeks, and this time, I'm excited to celebrate with the people who truly care about me. And when it comes to my mother, the door is closed. For good. A lot has happened since my last update, and honestly, I don't even know where to start. 3 weeks ago, Emma finally moved into her own place. It's just a 10-minute drive from me, which has been such a blessing. My stepdad visits her often, without my mother, and for the first time in years, we've been able to sit down to family dinners. Just me, Daniel, my sisters, and my stepdad. No tension. No walking on eggshells. No wondering when my mother might explode. And then came the reception. We booked a small event space near Daniel's parents' house. Nothing extravagant, just a chance to celebrate with people who truly cared about us. Becky arrived early as planned with her little boy. She only stayed an hour, enough to hand us her gift, a gorgeous handmade quilt, and give us hugs before slipping out. No confrontation. No drama. Just love. Shortly after, my stepdad and sisters walked in. And this time, they came alone. My mother wasn't with them. Later, my stepdad told me she'd thrown one of her trademark tantrums that morning. She'd tried to physically block the door, screaming while he and my sisters were getting ready. But he just walked around her, climbed into the car, and drove off. My sisters followed him out, leaving her screaming in the doorway. For once, she didn't win. The reception was beautiful. About 50 people came, Daniel's family, friends, neighbors. My grandmother even showed up, though she stayed only long enough to hand me a card and make some pointed remark about my mother's absence. I smiled, thanked her, and walked away. I wasn't about to let her sour the night. But of course, peace never lasts long with my mother. Halfway through the reception, I was chatting with Daniel's aunt when I noticed a stir near the entrance. My stomach dropped. There she was. My mother. She was uninvited. She was clearly intoxicated. And she was trying to push past Daniel's father, who had planted himself firmly in the doorway to block her. Daniel rushed over, and seconds later my stepdad joined them. Together, they managed to usher her out before she could make too much of a scene. Most guests had no idea what even happened. When my stepdad came back inside, his face looked weary, but his eyes, they looked determined. He hugged me and said, "I'll handle her from now on." And then, he stayed. He danced with me during the father-daughter dance I'd planned, and that moment made everything worth it. But later that night, he pulled me aside. His voice was steady, but there was fire behind it. He told me he'd made his decision, he's filing for divorce. He said watching her try to ruin yet another milestone in my life was the last straw. He's already spoken with a lawyer. The papers are being served this week. And as if that wasn't enough, there's the pregnancy. I'm 16 weeks along now, and my bump is impossible to hide. Last week, I had my anatomy scan. The doctor smiled and told us everything looked healthy. And then we heard the words I'd been dying to hear, we're having a girl. After the reception, Daniel and I finally shared the news with my stepdad and sisters. Their reactions were priceless. My sisters squealed, my stepdad actually teared up. They promised to keep the secret as long as they could. But of course, secrets don't stay secret in my family. Just 3 days later, my mother found out. I suspect my grandmother, though she swears she didn't say a word. My phone lit up with message after message from my mother, demands to be involved, accusations that I was keeping her granddaughter from her, rants about betrayal. I blocked her number. Within an hour, she was calling from new numbers. I blocked those too. And then she showed up at my workplace. Thankfully, security was already briefed about her. They intercepted her before she could reach my department and escorted her out. Still, my hands shook for hours afterward. But the scariest moment came the very next morning. I walked outside to find all 4 of my tires slashed. No note. No proof. But the timing? Too coincidental to ignore. We filed a police report, but without evidence, I know nothing will likely come of it. Daniel and I have already started house hunting in a nearby town. The thought of moving while pregnant exhausts me, but the idea of staying here with her lurking in the shadows terrifies me more. My stepdad offered another solution. Once he moves out as part of the divorce, he wants to find a place with a guest house or in-law suite. Somewhere he can stay close. Close enough to help protect us, and to be near his granddaughter. Daniel and I are seriously considering it. On a brighter note, my doctor referred me to a high-risk specialist because of my previous miscarriage. The specialist has been incredible, compassionate, thorough. She even added notes to my chart flagging my privacy concerns, and now every call to the office goes through extra verification. No one will trick their way into my information again. For now, we're living one day at a time. The restraining order paperwork is sitting on my desk, ready to file if she steps out of line again. My stepdad keeps me updated on her moves, and I know he's finally serious about breaking free himself. But with my daughter on the way, the clock is ticking. Will my mother escalate before the divorce is final? Will she try to insert herself into my pregnancy again? Or will she finally realize she has no power here anymore? Only time will tell. First, the good news. 3 weeks ago, my daughter, Olivia, came into the world. 7 pounds, 4 ounces of absolute perfection. She's healthy, beautiful, and already has this tiny little grip that makes me feel like I could move mountains for her. The delivery went smoothly. Quiet. Controlled. Just the way Daniel and I wanted it. We didn't tell anyone except his parents when I went into labor, and we didn't announce her birth until we were already home, safe and settled. My stepdad and sisters were the first visitors after Daniel's parents. They showed up with bags of gifts, arms wide open, and tears in their eyes. My stepdad could barely contain himself. He just sat there smiling, cradling Olivia like she was the most precious thing on earth. He even whispered about how he can't wait to teach her how to fish when she's old enough. That moment, after everything we've been through together, it meant everything. But of course, the good news never comes without the storm that follows. We decided not to move after all. Instead, we turned our house into a fortress. A new alarm system, more cameras, reinforced locks, every entry point secured. Even our neighbors are in on it, watching out for us, ready to call if they see anything strange. It feels good knowing we have a small army on our side. Meanwhile, my stepdad's divorce is in motion. He left 2 months ago and found a little apartment barely 5 minutes from our house. But of course, my mother isn't making it easy. She's refusing to sign papers, making bizarre demands, and trying to paint herself as the victim. She's even claiming he abandoned her, despite the fact that she's barely worked a day in her life. And then, predictably, she found out about Olivia. Thanks to my grandmother, again. She saw the pictures my sisters posted on social media and immediately ran to tell my mother. Within hours, my phone lit up with a flood of messages. Demands to see her grandbaby, accusations that I was cruel, vindictive, selfish. I ignored every single one. 2 days later, a huge package showed up at our door. Baby clothes. Toys. A handwritten note acting like nothing had ever happened. As if years of abuse could be erased with a few onesies and a teddy bear. I donated everything to a women's shelter. Didn't acknowledge it. Didn't give her the satisfaction. But she wasn't done. 5 days after Olivia was born, I was home alone, Daniel was at work, when I heard pounding on the front door. I checked the camera and froze. It was her. My mother. On my porch, yelling that she had a right to see her granddaughter. My heart was racing, Olivia was in my arms, and all I could think was, not here. Not now. I called my stepdad. He was there within minutes. He walked straight up to her and said if she didn't leave immediately, he was calling the police. She finally stormed off. That same day, we filed for a restraining order. With the tire slashing, the workplace harassment, and now this porch confrontation, plus witness statements from my stepdad and sisters, the judge granted us a temporary order. Next month, we'll fight for a permanent one. My mother didn't take it quietly. She's retaliating by spreading rumors to anyone who will listen. According to my aunt, she's telling people I'm unstable, that my stepdad brainwashed me, that I'm keeping Olivia from her out of spite. Most of my family knows better, but a few distant relatives have reached out asking if I'm okay. It's exhausting. Last week, she left a voicemail for Daniel. Sobbing. Begging him to talk sense into me. Claiming she's been sober for months, which I know for a fact isn't true, and insisting she deserves a second chance. Daniel deleted it before I could even finish listening. And then, my grandmother called. Again. This time, she suggested a supervised visit at her house. I'll be there the whole time, she promised, as if that would make everything okay. I told her no. Nothing has changed. My mother hasn't owned up to her actions, hasn't sought treatment, hasn't shown a shred of remorse. My grandmother sounded disappointed, but I stood firm. Because this isn't about me anymore. This is about Olivia. Thankfully, Emma and Lily have been incredible. They stop by constantly, bringing casseroles, soups, even just snacks, and they'll take turns holding Olivia so I can shower or grab a nap. Daniel's parents have been equally amazing, helpful, but never overstepping. And my stepdad? He's here almost every day. Sometimes just for a few minutes, just to peek in on Olivia and smile. He told me yesterday that watching me become a mother has made him more certain than ever that divorcing my mother was the right call. He said he regrets not leaving sooner, back when I was still trapped in that house. But he's grateful we've rebuilt what we lost. As for me, I'm on maternity leave until January. My workplace has been nothing but supportive, even continuing the heightened security protocols we put in place during my pregnancy. And every time I look at Olivia, every time I kiss her little forehead or watch her tiny chest rise and fall as she sleeps, I feel this fierce certainty. I broke the cycle. I will never let her go through what I did. The restraining order hearing is coming up, and I'm gathering everything I need with my stepdad's help. Part of me still wishes things could be different, that my mother could have been the person I needed. But I've accepted she never will be. My job now is clear: protect my daughter, build the stable, loving home I never had, and finally put an end to the chaos my mother has caused my whole life. And for once, I truly believe I can. Dad put his new wife's name on the house deed, and lost everything. Now he's standing on my doorstep, broke, heartbroken, and begging for help. And the question I can't shake is, can I really give him another chance after everything he's done to us? My dad is 52. His new wife? She's 34. And I'm 25. My little sister, Emily, she's just 19. So yeah, you can probably already see how this feels less like family life and more like a daytime soap opera. But let me take you back, because the story doesn't begin here. My parents split when I was only 4. I don't remember much of the marriage, just the constant shouting, slamming doors, and this heavy tension in the air that made me want to hide under the covers. After the divorce, Mom moved across the country for work, and I stayed with Dad. He remarried quick. I was 6 when Mary, my stepmom, came into the picture. She wasn't evil, but she was cold. And to Dad? She was everything. More important than me. More important than Emily. I'll never forget the grape juice incident. I was 12, clumsy, tripped over our cat, Whiskers, and spilled juice on Mary's precious white blouse. Instead of defending me, Dad stood silently as Mary screamed in my face, calling me careless, accusing me of doing it on purpose. Hours later, when I asked him why he didn't say anything, his answer cut me deeper than her yelling ever did. "We have to keep Mary happy," he said. "She's the most important person in this family." I carried those words for years. Emily was born that same year. I thought maybe Dad would finally step up, but he didn't. He was too busy with Mary, too busy with work, too busy with anything but us. I became the caretaker. I was the one staying up through the night when Emily spiked a fever, cooling her forehead with wet cloths while Dad and Mary told me to handle it. When Mary eventually left him, for her yoga instructor, of all people, Dad didn't turn to us. No, he drowned himself in work and dating. A revolving door of girlfriends paraded through our home, each one expecting us to smile and pretend. Some were tolerable. Others? Pure cruelty. One woman, Tiffany, threw away my favorite mug, a gift from my mom, and when I cried, she told Dad I was being dramatic. He sided with her, of course. He always sided with them. By the time I turned 18, I was done. I moved out the second I had the chance, taking a scholarship to state college and scraping by with part-time jobs. Emily stayed behind, until 2 years later, when she begged me to let her move in. She was 16, and one of Dad's girlfriends had been snooping through her diary. That was the final straw. We built a life together. Just me and Emily. Dad hardly noticed we were gone, except when he needed money, or wanted to vent about his latest heartbreak. Then 2 years ago, he met Melissa. 34 years old. Closer to my age than his. At first, I thought maybe she'd be different. She smiled at us, acted interested. But then came the shift. Dad stopped calling unless Melissa was around. He started canceling plans with us to do whatever she wanted. And when we did see him, he'd gush about how amazing she was and demand that we respect her as our new mom. I'm only 9 years younger than her. Can you imagine being told that? The breaking point came at Emily's high school graduation. Dad promised he'd be there. She saved him a seat in the front row. But Melissa wanted to go on a cruise that same week, and instead of telling her no, Dad simply didn't show up. Didn't even call. Emily cried in the bathroom in her cap and gown, while I held her and swore we'd never let him hurt us again. That night, we cut contact. For over a year, we didn't hear from him. And we healed. Emily started college, I became a teacher, and we leaned on each other like sisters should. Then last week, everything changed. Dad showed up at my apartment. And he looked destroyed. Hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled, stinking like he hadn't bathed in days. Right there in the hallway, he broke down crying. Melissa had been cheating on him, laughing in his face when he found out. She admitted she never loved him, that she only wanted his money. And the worst part? He'd given her everything. He'd put her name on the deed to his house. His savings were gone. His car? In her name, too. He showed me his bank statements, over $50,000 spent on her in just 1 year. Now he's broke. Homeless. And suddenly, family matters again. He begged to stay with us. Said, family sticks together. As if the past 20 years never happened. When I pushed back, he got defensive. He brought up childhood memories, like the summer he taught me to ride a bike, as if those handful of good days could erase years of neglect, abandonment, and broken promises. I told him I'd think about it, that I needed to talk to Emily first. And since then? He hasn't stopped. Calling. Texting. Guilt-tripping. Promising things will be different. He's even floated the idea of suing Melissa, but legally, I don't think he has a chance. Emily is furious. She says letting him back in will only reopen the wounds she's just started to heal. And honestly? She's right. But he's still my dad. And I can't shake the guilt of leaving him with nothing. So here I am, stuck between compassion and self-preservation. Is this karma for the way he's treated us? Or am I heartless if I don't help him? Because deep down, I know the truth, if we take him back in, he might just fall for the next woman who looks his way, and abandon us all over again. 2 weeks have passed since my last post, and so much has happened. Emily and I decided it was time to face Dad, on our terms. We agreed to meet him at a neutral spot, a little coffee shop near my apartment. When we walked in, I hardly recognized him. Compared to the wreck we'd seen at my door weeks earlier, he looked better. He'd shaved, put on clean clothes. He didn't look like himself, but he didn't look completely broken either. We sat down, and before I let him say a word, I told him what this meeting was really about. We need to talk about the past. I laid it all out, the years of being pushed aside, the broken promises, the way he always chose women over us. I brought up missing Emily's graduation, canceling plans, even that old memory of Mary screaming at me over spilled grape juice while he stood by in silence. At first, he tried to defend himself. Said he was keeping the peace, that maybe we were exaggerating. But the more we talked, the more I watched his defenses crumble. His shoulders sank. His voice softened. And then Emily spoke. She had been so quiet up until that moment. But when she finally opened her mouth, the words came out like a dam breaking. She told him how she used to cry herself to sleep as a child, wondering why her dad never wanted to spend time with her. She told him how much it hurt to watch him dote on girlfriends while barely noticing she was in the room. Then she brought up a memory I'd completely forgotten, her school play when she was 10. She'd landed the lead role and had been practicing nonstop for weeks. She begged Dad to come. He promised he'd be there. But on opening night, she kept scanning the audience, waiting to see his face, and he never showed. We found out later he went to a concert with his girlfriend instead. Emily said she never tried out for another play after that. Her voice cracked as she said it. And I watched Dad's face break. For the first time in my life, I saw my father sob. He apologized over and over, saying he'd been selfish, stupid. He told us Melissa had manipulated him for years, isolated him, convinced him that we were the problem. She even pushed him into early retirement, promising they could live off his savings. Then she drained him dry, stocks, retirement, everything. By the time he realized, it was too late. Dad admitted he'd been battling depression for years, long before Melissa. That he'd buried himself in relationships because he felt inadequate as a father. It wasn't an excuse, but for once, it felt like the truth. So, Emily and I made a decision. We told him he wasn't moving in with us. We couldn't trust him yet. But we wouldn't leave him completely stranded either. We offered him one last chance, under strict conditions. We'd cover his first month's rent on a tiny apartment. He had 30 days to find a job and start paying his own way. He had to attend family counseling with us once a week. And no dating. None. For at least 6 months, while he focused on rebuilding his relationship with us. If he broke any of those rules, it was over. For good. Dad agreed. He even seemed grateful. We helped him move into a cramped studio last week. He barely had anything left after Melissa kicked him out, so we took him to a thrift store to get the basics. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt conflicted. Part of me hopes this time will be different. The other part of me remembers every promise he's ever broken, every time he's run back into the arms of some new woman while leaving us behind. Emily is even more skeptical. She's only agreeing to counseling for my sake. She told me flat out, she's not expecting much. That guilt sits heavy on me. Our first counseling session was brutal. Old wounds resurfaced and tears flowed, mostly from Dad, which still feels strange to say. The counselor didn't let him off easy. She forced him to confront the kind of father he'd been. That's when we learned about his own dad, an alcoholic who was rarely around. Dad admitted he never had a role model, never knew what being a father was supposed to look like. It didn't excuse anything, but it gave context. Since then, Dad's been trying. He's applying for jobs nonstop, even said he'd take a night shift at a warehouse if he had to. He emails me his applications for review, which feels surreal, my father, finally asking me for guidance. And yet, every time my phone buzzes, I half expect it to be him saying he's met someone new, that he's throwing it all away again. But so far, he's sticking to the plan. Emily hasn't seen him since the coffee shop. She texts occasionally, but she's keeping her distance. And I don't blame her. That's where things stand for now. Dad has one last chance. Maybe he'll surprise us. Or maybe, like always, he'll prove us right to doubt him. I'll keep you posted. It's been about a month since my last update, and honestly, it's been a roller coaster. Let's start with the good. Against all odds, Dad actually managed to find a job within the 30-day deadline we set. It's nothing glamorous, he's working the night shift stocking shelves at a grocery store, but for the first time in years, he seems genuinely proud of himself. He's paying rent on time. He's even saving a little each week instead of blowing through everything on women and impulsive nonsense. Watching him handle money responsibly? It feels surreal. The counseling sessions are still heavy. We dig up old wounds every single week. But progress, it's happening. Slowly. Dad's been opening up about his past, really facing who he's been. One session in particular still echoes in my head. Dad brought up a memory from when I was about 5, right after the divorce. He said he remembered me crying, asking him why Mommy didn't love us anymore. And instead of holding me, instead of reassuring me, he got angry. He told me to stop being a baby. He admitted it wasn't about me, it was him, projecting his own pain onto a little kid who just wanted comfort. Hearing that, it broke something inside me all over again, but also, maybe it healed a piece too. For the first time, he didn't make excuses. He owned it. Emily's been showing up more often to counseling, which is a miracle in itself. She's still guarded, her walls are high, but at least she's willing to sit in the same room now. Last week, she even laughed at one of his dumb dad jokes. Something about a penguin walking into a bar. It was cheesy, ridiculous, and yet, hearing her laugh? That was huge. But of course, it hasn't all been smooth. 2 weeks ago, Dad called me in a panic. His voice was shaking. Turns out, he ran into Melissa at the grocery store. She saw him in his uniform, made some cruel remark about him being a stock boy, and then, get this, tried to reel him back in. Told him she missed him, that she'd made a mistake. For a moment, my heart sank. I thought, this is it. He's going to fall for her lies again. But instead, he called me. He didn't go back to her. He didn't give in. He picked up the phone and asked me for support. And we talked for hours that night. He kept repeating how grateful he was for this second chance, swearing he'd never risk losing us again. Emily struggled with it more. She spiraled, convinced he'd run right back into Melissa's arms. It took a lot of reassurance, from me, from our counselor, to get her to breathe again. She's still bracing for the inevitable slip-up. But there have been bright spots. Dad started showing real interest in our lives. He asks about Emily's classes, about my job. And last week? He remembered my birthday. For the first time in years. He couldn't buy anything fancy, but he baked me a lopsided cake and made me a card. It wasn't perfect, but it was effort. And effort means everything. We've even had a few family dinners at my place. Awkward at first, sure. But they're getting easier. Dad's trying to learn how to cook. So far, it's been a comedy of errors. Last week, he tried to make spaghetti and somehow set off the smoke alarm. We ended up ordering pizza, but we laughed about it together. And honestly, that laughter felt good. Still, I can't fully let my guard down. There are moments where I catch myself waiting for him to backslide, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But so far, he's sticking to our agreement. Emily is thawing, bit by bit. She even agreed to let Dad come to one of her college volleyball games next month. That's no small thing. She's not ready for one-on-one time, and that's okay. But this is a step forward. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm proud of the progress we've made. I really am. But I'm keeping my expectations grounded. Because rebuilding a family, it doesn't happen overnight. That's where things stand now. A work in progress. Hopeful, cautious, and complicated. I'll keep you updated if anything major happens. And to everyone who's followed this journey, your words, your encouragement, it's meant more than I can say. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and if I had to sum it up in one phrase, I'd say we're making progress, but it's been anything but easy. The good news? Dad has stuck with his job at the grocery store. Not only that, he actually got a small promotion to shift supervisor. For the first time in years, he's walking with his shoulders a little straighter, talking about how proud he is to be working again. He's even been making friends with some of his coworkers, and honestly, I think having people outside of family to lean on has been good for him. The counseling sessions have continued, and if I'm being real, they've been intense. We've been digging into wounds so deep that sometimes I leave those meetings feeling like my chest has been cracked wide open. But it's necessary. Dad has been confronting his past, really looking at himself in the mirror without trying to deflect or defend. It's not easy to hear, but I do appreciate the honesty. One session in particular shook me. Dad talked about his childhood. He painted a picture of his father, my grandfather, disappearing for days on drinking binges, leaving Dad, just a boy himself, to take care of his younger siblings. He said he swore he'd be a better father, that he'd never repeat that cycle. But somewhere along the way, he did. Maybe not in the same way, but in his own version of neglect. Hearing him admit that? It hurt, but it also made me understand him in a way I hadn't before. Emily's been more involved lately, too. And something big happened in one of those sessions. She finally told Dad how much it broke her when he missed her graduation. She described sitting there in her cap and gown, saving him a seat, her eyes searching the crowd while her stomach sank lower and lower as the night went on. She told him how it felt like confirmation that she wasn't important enough. For the first time, Dad didn't brush it off or try to excuse it. He broke down. He cried. And he apologized in a way that actually felt sincere. Emily told me afterward that it was the first time she believed he truly understood the pain he caused. We've been making an effort to do more things together outside of therapy. Last month, Dad suggested a camping trip. Said it reminded him of when Emily and I were little, back before everything spiraled. So we packed up and went. It wasn't perfect, Dad forgot the mosquito repellent, so we all looked like buffet platters for bugs by the end of the weekend. And when he tried to light the campfire, he managed to singe his eyebrows, which had us doubled over laughing. But for once, the laughter wasn't bitter. It felt real. Still, there have been bumps. Dad ran into one of his old girlfriends at a bar where he'd gone for dinner. She tried to sweet-talk him, to convince him to go out with her. And for a second, I think he was tempted. But instead of slipping back into his old patterns, he picked up the phone. He called me. He said he realized no relationship was worth jeopardizing what he's building with us. I was proud, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't remind me how fragile this all still is. Emily's trust issues run deep. If Dad doesn't answer his phone right away, she panics. Her mind goes straight to, he's found someone new, he's going to disappear again. We're working on it in therapy, trying these trust-building exercises our counselor suggested, but it's slow going. And honestly, I can't blame her for feeling that way. As for me, I found myself cautiously optimistic. Some days, I catch myself actually enjoying time with Dad. I notice I'm less tense around him, not always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Other days, doubt creeps back in and I wonder if we're fooling ourselves. But overall, I think, we're moving forward. Dad's been talking about reaching out to old friends, people he pushed away during his relationship with Melissa. I keep telling him, focus on us first. But part of me thinks it's good he's thinking beyond just survival. That maybe he's starting to rebuild more than just our family. We're even planning a small celebration next month. 6 months of sobriety. He was never a heavy drinker, but since everything blew up with Melissa, he hasn't touched a drop. And that feels worth recognizing. So that's where we're at. It's not perfect. It's messy. But for the first time in a long time, there's movement, forward. Thank you to everyone who's been following along, offering advice and encouragement. Your words have been a lifeline through this storm. And I'll be back with another update when the next chapter unfolds.